Discover the amazing hidden power to silence your mind and transform your peace forever. Rain pattered relentlessly against the windows of Claire's modest home, muffling the echoes of discontent. She dusted off the old closet, memories flooding in with each forgotten trinket. Somewhere beneath the clutter lay remnants of the vibrant artist she once was, a woman who dared to dream. But dreams now felt heavy, shackled to bills and rebellious outbursts from her teenage son, Jake. Each stroke of a brush seemed lighter than her responsibilities, drowning her in a sea of expectations set by her brother, the golden child, a lawyer whose career path cast a shadow deeper than her own artistic aspirations. Cleaning out the dark, neglected corners of her closet, she pulled out an old sketchbook, brittle pages yellowing with time. As she opened it, vibrant sketches danced to life, bold lines and delicate colors whispering tales of a lost passion. Each doodle reminded her of the nurturing warmth of her mother, whose encouragement felt like a distant echo. Claire's heart tightened. Could she awaken the dormant artist within, or had she already resigned herself to mediocrity? While she attempted to balance her role as an art teacher with being a mother, the weight of her dual life suffocated her creative spark. Conversations with Jake spiraled into bitter battles. His wild rebellion was a mirror of her own suffocating constraints. Last night's argument over his laziness in school had ended with her storming off, fists clenched, humiliation washing over her. The distance between them loomed like a chasm. Can I hold on to my dreams while being a good mom? Desperation gnawed at her. Was it selfish to chase the creative spark her mother had cherished, when her son viewed her as a failure? As thoughts collided, Claire's breath quickened. The stable life dictated by money and expectations felt like a wet blanket smothering her aspirations. Just as she thought she might regain her focus, guilt swept in like a thundercloud. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, as Claire stood in the kitchen, the air thickened, and the spatula in her hand felt like a weapon. Jake's glaring eyes pinched her heart with frustration. You don't get it, do you? He snapped. His words cut deeper than any knife. You think it's all about art and following some pathetic dream. Rebellion crackled between them, igniting a familiar tension. Anguish pulled at Claire's insides, a tempest of vulnerability and defiance. Could she reclaim her voice, or would the echoes of her brother's condescension drown it out, leaving her gasping for validation? The clash of mother and son roared like distant thunder. As the argument escalated, a realization surged within her. Giving in to despair would not bridge the growing gap. Inspiration simmered behind her heart, begging to be unleashed. But would exploring her artistic roots create peace, or fracture her relationship with Jake further? Each question clanged like a hollow drum, drowning her in uncertainty. Standing at the edge of an unseen precipice, Claire felt the weight of generations pressing down, the legacy of creativity her mother had cherished, and the suffocating success dictated by her brother. What if pursuing her art only severed what little connection remained with Jake? Would she lose herself in the pursuit of something deemed frivolous? As the storm raged outside, so did her racing thoughts. The struggle for balance felt almost unbearable, leaving her teetering on the brink of a transformation she wasn't certain she wanted, but desperately needed. The following morning, Claire awoke to the sun filtering cautiously through the dark clouds that lingered from the storm. The remnants of yesterday's argument hung in the air, an unwelcome fog that dulled her senses. She fumbled her way into the kitchen, her tired mind still grappling with the turmoil of emotions. As she made herself a cup of coffee, she glanced at the sketchbook lying on the dining table, the pages inviting yet intimidating. What if this was the day she began to reclaim her artistic spirit? Thoughts of Jake's harsh words urged her forward. She recognized that she couldn't change him, but perhaps she could change herself. With that flicker of determination igniting, Claire resolved to spend the afternoon sketching. After preparing a simple breakfast, she approached Jake's room. Hesitantly, she knocked, and after a brief moment, he grumbled a response. Gathering courage, she opened the door. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. Jake barely glanced up from his phone, but his silence rippled with the potential for confrontation. "You've got to understand my perspective, Jake. Art isn't just a hobby to me. It's part of who I am," she started, her voice trembling but loud enough to cut through the thick air of resentment. "Yeah, well, in the real world, no one cares about that," he muttered, frustration radiating from him. All across his face, Claire saw the anger that mirrored her own insecurities. "Maybe you don't care, but there was a time when I felt alive through my art. It gave me purpose." The words burst out, her heart racing. Purpose? Or just an excuse to avoid being a responsible adult? The tension flared as Jake shot back, eyes narrowed, yet Claire felt something shift in her. Rather than retreating into defeat, she leaned into the pain of their fractured relationship. "I know things are tough right now, but arguing won't help us. I want to reconnect with what I love, but I also want to understand you better. Can we at least try?" For a moment, Jake simply stared, unblinking. The vulnerable plea hung between them like a thread, fragile yet full of potential. To her relief, he sighed, albeit begrudgingly. "Fine, just don't expect me to know what to say." Claire felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this opening could lead to something positive. "I'm going to sketch today. Let us see if you want to join me, even if it's just to hang around." As she stepped back into her day, the sketchbook felt lighter in her hands than it had the day before. She settled in her art studio, sunlight spilling through the windows, illuminating long-ignored canvases stacked against the walls. With every brushstroke, she focused on the colors, their vibrancy awakening parts of herself that had grown dormant. The first marks on the page were tentative, each one beckoning her to embrace vulnerability and honesty. With each sketch she revisited, she began to experiment, feeling her way back to passion, the colors becoming not only ciphers of her past, but of her hope for the future. In this creative outpour, she discovered a form of clarity. Each stroke of the brush dispelled the cloud of guilt and uncertainty, creating a new rhythm, a new melody of resilience she had long forgotten, but as she was lost in the world she had created, her phone chimed. It was a text from Jake. "Can we talk about what to do about school?" The question was straightforward, the vulnerability within it layered. Claire closed her eyes, heart racing anew. This could either be a personal breakthrough or another uphill battle. The moment of truth awaited, as did the tension of reconnecting with her son even as she tried to reconnect with herself. Perhaps this was the juncture where she could begin to bridge not only her own aspirations but also the gap between mother and son, if she dared to confront the fragments of their relationship head-on. Would she have the courage to explore it together? The stirring anticipation tugged at her, leaving a resonating uncertainty where might it lead them both. Claire sat back in her chair, the brush momentarily forgotten in her hand as she wrestled with the weight of Jake's text. School, an uncharted territory laden with expectations and pressures. A surge of protectiveness rose within her. He was still her boy, and they had always navigated life together. But how could she guide him while struggling to find her own way? Determined to make this count, Claire put the brush down and took a deep breath. She approached the challenge as she would with her art, with intention and focus. First, she needed clarity on what some possible solutions and pathways could be. Rummaging through her art supplies, she picked up a notebook. Jotting down bullet points felt necessary, a way of organizing thoughts that had spiraled chaotically in her mind. Questions began flowing. What are Jake's strengths? What challenges does he face? Where does he think he fits into the world of academia, especially now? With each scribble, her thoughts crystallized. School wasn't merely about grades or tests, it was about the experience, the people, and the opportunities for growth. A roadmap was forming from academic struggles to social connections. The urgency of her task sharpened her focus. Claire didn't just want to solve Jake's issues, she wanted him to see them as paths toward self-realization. Minutes turned into a flurry of ideas as she shifted into problem-solving mode, the remnants of their earlier confrontation hanging in the air but transformed into motivation. The thought of constructing a framework for Jake's educational journey ignited a sense of purpose, grounding her spirit as an artist in this endeavor as mother. Two roles, intertwined by the common thread of aspiration, but still, doubt lingered. Would Jake be receptive to her ideas? Would he see her as an ally rather than an adversary? What if he didn't take the discussion seriously, dismissing it with the same apathy he showed towards her art, the thrum of anxiety tangled with excitement? It was time to act. She slid her notebook closer and formulated a strategy. They would talk after dinner, over a meal that wrapped them both in a blanket of comfort, one that she could control. This would be space for connection, rather than conflict. As the hours passed and the culinary scents filled the house, Claire prepared a simple meal, her mind circling back to her own artistic journey. Each time she achieved a mark on the page, she felt moments of uncertainty, too. Could she truly reach Jake as she had reached the canvas? Could she express her ideas clearly enough that he would embrace them? "Dinner's ready," she called, summoning Jake from his room. As he shuffled into the kitchen, the faintest hint of trepidation threaded through the air. Of course, she noticed him scanning the table with skepticism. He sat down but remained locked in his mental space, setting Claire on edge. Yet, she knew she had to begin. Clearing her throat, she invited him gently, "Let's talk about school. I've come up with some ideas." Jake's eyes flickered from the steaming plates to her, frustration evident. "Yeah, right. You mean your ideas?" The air thickened, but Claire refused to retreat. "No, ideas about us. What we can do together to tackle the challenges ahead." In that moment, she resolved to push past his dismissal. This was their opportunity, a line drawn in the sand between the past, filled with misunderstandings, and a future potentially ripe with understanding. Together. The word felt charged, imbued with possibility, yet it hung precariously in the air. As she steadied herself for the words to follow, she hoped they would break through his defenses. Would this be the moment they began to rebuild? The answer was uncertain, and as the conversation unfolded, Claire sensed she was a step closer to either rebuilding their fractured bond or pushing them further apart. But like an artist hesitant before a blank canvas, she had to let her brush move, even if it meant confronting fear. In those next minutes she would either awaken a connection, or lay bare another wound. Would Jake be willing to join her, or would the past remain a wall between them? The truth awaited, and so did Jake's reaction, poised precariously like the edge of the brush over the canvas. The clinking of forks against plates provided a temporary rhythm, but the silence between them swirled with tension. Claire took a moment to examine Jake's face, where turmoil etched itself behind his guarded expression. His reluctance mirrored her own unease, a shared inertia that both bound them and kept them apart. "Let's start with your strengths," she ventured, her voice steady but underlying a hint of vulnerability. "What subjects do you feel confident in?" Jake shrugged, eyes blinking rapidly as he mulled over her questions. "I don't know. I just don't care about any of it. It's pointless." Pointless? Her heart sank at his disillusionment. What if you could find a way to make it worthwhile? To connect it to what you enjoy? Art, for instance. He rolled his eyes, making her chest tighten. That familiar wall was rising again, and she feared she might lose this moment. Art. That's all you think about, isn't it? "I think about you," Claire replied, meeting his gaze with newfound ferocity. "Everything I do is for us. I want to find a way to navigate school together, not against each other." Jake's brow furrowed, and an internal struggle played across his features. Could he really entertain the idea that they might be able to work as a team? Inspired by her own convictions, Claire pushed forward, layering her words with sincere intention, molding them like her paints, mixing colors for depth. "What if we create a project, combining schoolwork with your interests? Something you'd actually want to engage with?" The idea hung in the air, and for a heartbeat, Claire felt hope flutter. Jake's brows knitted tighter, though, resistance still clung to him. Like what? I'm not some science fair kid. Not just science, think beyond. We could approach a topic creatively, experiment with visuals in a presentation, or even analyze how art influences moods and learning. It could be fun, even if it's for school. Slowly, the slightest shift registered in his posture. A flicker of curiosity replaced some of the boredom in his eyes. You really think I can do that? I believe you can do anything you set your mind to, Jake. You have talent, don't underestimate it. Or yourself. The conviction in her voice surprised even her, but she sensed it was time for that clarity to resonate. Taking a breath, Claire felt her own nervousness loosen just a bit. With each new idea shared between them, they climbed a step closer to mutual understanding. The culinary roundness of dinner was now edged with leaner concepts which fed their conversation. A short, hopeful silence followed before Jake sighed. What if I still don't want to do it? What if I'm just tired of trying? Then we figure out ways to reignite your passions, Claire responded softly. We can explore your interests, brainstorm together, but you have to meet me halfway. We remember who you are, and what you're naturally good at. The tension remained, a tightrope walk between avoidance and engagement. Jake briefly looked away, processing her words. Claire sensed she had a fragile grip on this moment and that she needed to continue nurturing the shift. You've always been good at finding unique angles in your art. What is stopping you from applying that creativity to your schoolwork? Her question lingered in the air as he mulled it over. There was a lightening in the atmosphere. Perhaps, just perhaps, she was beginning to pierce through the layers of his reluctance. Jake finally broke the silence. I don't want to be just another project, you know. What if I fail? Failures are part of growth. Even the best artists face countless rejections and blanks before something extraordinary blooms. It's how they build resilience. You have that same spark, it's just waiting to ignite. For a moment, Claire thought she saw his defenses crack, but Jake was quick to pull back into himself. I don't know, I still don't see the point. The conversation, while seemingly a step forward, threatened to echo a past they both wished to avoid. Claire knew, yet again, that this was a pivotal moment. She could either allow this to spiral toward disappointment or take a risk that might change everything. Maybe it's not about the point, she pressed, her voice laced with an urgency. It's about the journey. The moments we create together. The experiences that shape us. You might discover something new about yourself, what makes you, you. As her declaration hung in the air, Claire grasped her own parallel journey. Each brush stroke had the potential to unveil the image waiting underneath. They both needed to unearth their palette, to explore together. Jake's silence was palpable, heavy with contemplation. She could either push further or let the moment settle. A question danced on her lips, bound by the necessity of their next step. What if we try? Just for a week, no pressure, just exploring options together. Can you agree to that? The uncertainty swirling within Jake's eyes remained. But this decision, this small leap, had the potential to redefine their relationship. Could he bring himself to take it? Tension simmered, and Claire felt the weight of the moment. A formless canvas awaited its first stroke, ready for transformation. Would Jake step closer to embracing his artistic identity alongside the academic demands looming over him, or would he retreat into resignation as uncertainty loomed? The answer remained tantalizingly out of reach, waiting for them both to decide. Jake's gaze drifted to the half-empty plate before him, a small universe of unmade choices. Claire's challenge hung in the air, an unspoken invitation to a different version of himself, yet doubt clung to him like a heavy fog. He had spent so long defining his reality by avoidance, wrapping himself in a cocoon of indifference, but moments like this chipped away at his facade. Claire studied him, her patience unraveling. Was it fair to ask someone to leap when they felt like they were on a precipice? You don't have to commit to anything big right now, she reassured. We could just look at possibilities. You might find something that speaks to you. Her tone was soothing yet firm, and inside, he wrestled with the idea. What if he actually tried? What if he put himself into something again, only to have it slip away like sand through his fingers? But then again, what did he have to lose? The notion gnawed at him. Perhaps it was time to stop allowing fear to dictate his reality. All right, a week, he finally exhaled, the words feeling monumental in their simplicity. We'll see. A wave of relief washed over Claire's features, hinting at the gratitude beneath her steady exterior. Great. Let us start by jotting down things you love or want to explore. It can be anything: art, music, even the shows you binge watch. As they began brainstorming, Claire nudged him with curiosity, her excitement palpable. For the first time, Jake felt the corners of his mind begin to unravel, pondering his likes, his dislikes, and the potential threads that intertwined his art with academics. Each idea captivated him a little more, a flicker of possibility igniting behind his reticence. When he shared his love for street art, he noticed how Claire leaned in, her eyes glimmering with fascination. That could be a brilliant basis for a project. We could research the psychology of street art influence, how it reflects community and identity. Maybe even incorporate a visual element with your own designs. The enthusiastic pitch was a small spark igniting something dormant within. The concept echoed with him. It was a blend of academia and his passion, giving life to his art in a way that felt meaningful. It was as though Claire had handed him a brush and an open canvas. Still, another voice inside him whispered caution. Could he really dive back in without the weight of past failures dragging him down? Yet, in that moment, he envisioned what it would look like to explore street art's impact and complement it with his vision. The possibility of expressing himself through that mysterious intersection between his world and academic demands began to expand and fill the void left by his indecisiveness. What if we documented this journey too? Claire suggested, her enthusiasm infectious. We should keep a journal or even film our discovery process, sharing how we connect those dots. It could be more than just a grade, it could showcase who we are. Really? You'd want to film it? The past Alex, frozen in trepidation, raised an eyebrow, yet the new Jake saw vibrant flashes of opportunity. Absolutely. It could be freeing. You'd be using art in a new way, too. I mean, your camera skills are pretty good. She added teasingly, earning a half-smile from him. The tension in his brow softened, and the obstacles in his head began to ebb. Could he innovate rather than merely execute? Could he weave his identity into something he could share with the world? As ideas swirled around them, excitement infused the evening. However, just as clarity dawned, shadows flickered in the corners of his mind, filling him with doubts. What if he fell short of Claire's expectations? What if he disappointed himself yet again? His uncertainty threatened to engulf him once more. At the heart of it all lay the looming question: was he truly ready to step into the realm of risk and vulnerability? Or would he retreat to the confines of a self-imposed cage? The momentum generated a burgeoning energy that propelled him toward action but also heightened the stakes. With a deep breath, Jake recognized that these next steps, no matter the challenges involved, could redefine who he was amid the looming expectations of both school and himself. The quiet determination began to emerge, battling against the fear that had once held him captive. What awaited him on the other side of this threshold, he couldn't yet fathom, but he knew that wandering off the beaten path might just weed out the beauty waiting in the unknown. As laughter imbued the remaining dinner, Claire's joy mirrored his, yet the undercurrent of doubt still lingered. At what point would their fragile progress harden into something substantial? And could Jake truly own the path he was now about to traverse, fraught with both risk and reward? Still, there was no turning back now. With the flickering flame of resolve igniting within, Jake realized he was on the edge of reclaiming something he had long forsaken: his identity. Could he navigate this maze of vulnerability and passion unscathed? The moment felt fragile yet powerful, straddling the duality of promise and peril. What piece of himself might he discover with each brushstroke? And would he have the courage to let it unfold, or was he destined to remain a spectator in the gallery of his own life? The uncertainty loomed, thick with anticipation, heading toward an inevitable confrontation with himself. Jake's first morning buzzed with nervous energy. The sunlight streamed through his window, illuminating the fresh sketches he'd hastily produced the night before. Snippets of street art he had discovered online, intermingled with his ideas. Each line, each shadow represented potential, a world of expression waiting to be explored. But as the warmth enveloped him, doubt momentarily overshadowed that potential, whispering just enough uncertainty to keep him tentatively anchored to his bed that he swung his legs over the edge and sat up. The thought that nagged at him had grown into an unmistakable command. No more retreating. Today was the day to take action. He dressed deliberately, selecting a worn t-shirt that had once been his favorite, the vibrant colors bleeding into one another, much like the street art he admired. The choice served as a subtle affirmation, a reminder that he was stepping into the light, ready to confront both himself and his insecurities. His day began at the local cafe, a popular haunt for artists and intellectuals alike. The familiar clinking of cups and ambient chatter buzzed around him, but he felt isolated, a solitary figure brimming with self-doubt. Plopping down at a communal table scattered with half-finished sketches and abandoned manuscripts felt both thrilling and terrifying. It was here he felt the presence of others who thrived in creative chaos, yet he couldn't shake the gnawing anxiety that gripped his chest. At the table next to him, a group of students animatedly discussed the soul of street art. Their enthusiasm mixed with the rich aroma of coffee, practically vibrating the air around him. A moment of indecision gripped Jake. Should he join in, or remain an observer? The voice in his head urged him to hide back under his safety blanket, but that wasn't why he had come. He craved connection, interaction, validation for his artistic inclinations. Seeing the sketchpad in front of him open to a blank page, his resolve hardened. He pulled out his pencil, and as he began to draw, he could feel the world around him fade slightly, replaced by the swift strokes that began to flow from his hand. The characters in his sketches came alive, reflecting the stories he had once felt too timid to express. A few minutes into his solitude, Claire walked in, spotting him immediately. She waved enthusiastically, her radiant energy cutting through his self-imposed isolation like a beacon. "This place seems to hold inspiration just like you do," she exclaimed, taking a seat next to him. Jake's heart quickened, a mingling of anxiety and excitement. "I was just sketching some ideas for the project," he said, feigning nonchalance, but inside, he felt a surge of pride. Claire leaned in, clearly intrigued. "Let me see." As he hesitated, an unwelcome wave of doubt washed over him. What if his work wasn't good enough? Yet, spurred by her encouraging smile, he flipped the pages open. Claire's eyes widened as she surveyed the sketches. "Wow, Jake. This is fantastic." For the first time, her words seeped into the crags of self-doubt. "Really? You think so?" He found himself blinking at her. "Absolutely. You've captured something raw here. These ideas breathe life. We could even integrate this into our project's visual component." Her enthusiasm ignited the flames he had worked so hard to stoke, but just when it seemed as though momentum solidified, a thought pierced through the haze of excitement: but what if the feedback changes? Fear of a negative critique threatened to resurface, ready to pull him back into the shadows. Was he really taking a step forward, or simply dancing on the edge of his fears? He grappled with the notion of vulnerability, realizing that each commitment he made would peel layers of protection away. The analytical side of him recoiled: what if he wasn't skilled enough to execute his vision? Then another thought struck: growth never came from the safety of comfort zones, it evolved amidst uncertainty. As the conversation flowed, Jake quietly began to navigate this new territory, understanding the importance of stepping into his craft and allowing others to witness its evolution. With their collaborative spirit blooming, they returned to brainstorming, listing ways to present their findings. As Claire's voice filled the air, he listened intently, but he was consciously aware of a new sensation. The lingering anxiety began to shift toward excitement. Today marked the beginning of a journey, no longer filled with avoidance or half-hearted efforts. Yet, as he and Claire delved deeper, he felt a flicker of unease return. What if the reality of the journey wasn't as fulfilling as the idea of it? Would their partnership withstand the pressures of critique, time, and expectation? In that moment, he realized the stakes were rising. The surface of this newfound commitment was beginning to crack, revealing the tumultuous depths of self-doubt that still lay beneath. He could feel the weight of impending decisions pressed down upon him, a reminder that confronting his fears would not be a straightforward process. Would he stand firm, championing his vision, or would the familiar shadows lure him back? As the stakes escalated, Jake sensed the urgency of this unfolding story, one where he could either forge his path or risk disappearing into the background once more. His heart thundered at the thought, where would this lead him? What revelations awaited in the depths of this exploration? The afternoon light shifted, casting long shadows across the cafe, but Jake remained immersed in his sketches. His mind buzzed with possibilities. Claire's affirmation had ignited a flame within, yet it flickered precariously beneath the weight of his insecurities. Each stroke of his pencil felt empowering, yet entwined with a gnawing anxiety. Could he maintain this momentum? Claire's voice pulled him from his internal wrestling. They were brainstorming ideas for their project, each suggestion weaving a tapestry of excitement. What if we incorporate augmented reality into the display? She proposed, her eyes alight with enthusiasm. Jake's heart fluttered. He had heard about augmented reality but never considered it for his art. That could create a more immersive experience, he answered, his voice steadier than he felt. The idea blossomed in their discussion, transforming from a mere concept into something tangible. Yet, beneath the surface, doubt continued to brew. Was he technically adept enough to pull this off? The buzzing thought morphed into a firm question. What real skill did he possess beyond marking a page with charcoal? His past experiences flashed before him, moments of failure, struggles with technology, and missteps that had left him feeling incompetent. Did he possess the necessary ambition to delve into the digital world? Claire caught the shift in his demeanor, her brow furrowing in concern. "You okay?" she asked gently. Jake exhaled softly. "Just figuring out if I can handle this," he admitted, vulnerability coating his words. He had expected, perhaps desperately hoped, that Claire would dismiss his concerns, but instead, she leaned in closer. "Jake, that's the point of collaboration," she said. "We're here to push each other. If you feel unsure, let us figure it out together. Finding answers can be part of the fun." Her energy transformed uncertainty into potential. Her words resonated within him, stirring something deeper, a reluctant acceptance that he wasn't alone in this journey. Still, fear whispered harshly, "But what if you mess it up?" The idea of failure gnawed at him relentlessly. But reflected in Claire's optimism was a mirror, a representation of what he could achieve with just a nudge of encouragement. Jake sat with that thought, recognizing it as a hidden power he had almost overlooked. He could tap into this energy, allow it to fuel his creative process rather than diminish it. Pushing through layers of anxiety, he dove back into their brainstorming session. Ideas flowed freely, bolder and more complex. He proposed incorporating local artists' works into their project, a means to connect with the community that inspired him. As their conversation electrified the room, the anxiety clinging to him began to transform, morphing into resilience. Here was a chance not just to showcase art but to cultivate a dialogue. Art was about expression, and now, it could also serve to bridge connections and unravel narratives. Could he truly use his experiences to uplift others while wrestling with his vulnerabilities? Yet just as hope unfolded, the gnawing question resurfaced: would his partnership with Claire withstand the pressure of looming deadlines, potential failures, and differing visions? What if they hit a wall? Would Claire still see value in their joint efforts, or would his incompetence overshadow their collaboration? With these concerns swirling, Jake knew he needed to confront the darkness within. The stakes were too high to ignore them, and he refused to let fear determine his path. He would remain committed to the project and confront the challenges head-on. In that moment, clarity pierced through the chaos. He realized he stood at the threshold of transformative growth. The essential question crystallized in his mind: was he ready to embrace the unknown, or would he retreat into comfort once more? He hesitated, on the verge of a revelation, when Claire asked, "So, what's our next move?" As he faced her eager expression, an idea began to take form, one that could push him to confront not just his capabilities but the essence of who he wanted to become. Would he take the leap towards the unknown and risk shaping his identity in the process? Jake took a deep breath, his mind racing, the exhilarating possibility of their collaboration igniting something restless within him. He could feel the tentacles of self-doubt creeping back in, but this time he was determined to shake them off. Claire's faith in him acted like a lifeline, pulling him from the depths of uncertainty. What if we start by creating a prototype for the augmented reality elements? He suggested, a tentative spark of determination lighting his voice. We could visualize how it would blend with my physical art pieces. A flicker of approval crossed Claire's face. Absolutely. Let us draw up a rough outline of the prototype, then we can map out what technologies we might need. Her enthusiasm was infectious, a vivid reminder of the creative energy they brought out in one another. Jake's fingers began to move, scribbling ideas quickly onto the paper. He envisioned how the viewers would interact with the art, engaging with it in a way that stimulated not just a visual reaction, but an emotional one. Each stroke of his pen grounded him. He was navigating beyond just the physical act of drawing. It was a mental journey that beckoned him toward new depths, yet, as he sketched, the familiar whispers of inadequacy surfaced. What if his lack of technical skills would bring their project crashing down? He lifted his pencil and stared at the paper, heart racing. You need to learn, he told himself sternly. The prospect of confronting technology terrified him, reminding him vividly of earlier failures. He couldn't afford to let fear make him freeze again. Maybe we could divide the tasks. He proposed, glancing at Claire. I can handle the art side, while you manage the tech software. You've dealt with these kinds of programs before, right? The words came out more like a plea than a proposal, as if he sought permission to lean on her strengths while he battled his insecurities. Claire nodded, her expression encouraging. Yes, but it doesn't mean you can't learn. Let us find resources together. We can do online tutorials, or even reach out to some professionals in the field. Her voice wrapped around him like a warm blanket amidst the chill of his doubts. They engaged in a fast-paced dialogue, creating lists of potential learning platforms and resources. The uncertainty within him began to shrivel at the thought of shared responsibility. It was refreshing to embrace the idea of collaboration as a partnership rather than a burden. However, Jake's internal white noise persisted, relentless as ever. He couldn't shake the underlying fear of their project failing. What would it mean for them as a partnership? Would Claire blame him if their augmented reality concept fell short? With their discussions flowing, something shifted. Each time he felt the weight build, he fought back. A passing thought that insisted he was not enough began to be overtaken by a burgeoning belief in his potential, however nascent it still was. Okay, let us set a timeline, he said, firming his resolution. We'll have a basic prototype in 2 weeks, and by then we should be ready to finalize our choices for the technology. Claire smiled widely, her confidence radiating. I love that. Let us get to work. As they mapped their schedule, Jake felt the tension in his chest relax. For the first time in weeks, he visualized not just the art he would create, but the artist he wanted to grow into, an artist unafraid of the notion that collaboration could leverage his weaknesses and amplify his strengths. But as he put away the sketches, contemplating the road ahead, he couldn't shake the underlying vulnerability, the looming deadlines, the potential fallout of failure, and the glimmer of excitement dancing perilously close to dread. He sat back, steeling himself for the challenges that were yet to come. Would he truly be prepared to navigate both the technical and creative realms? Or would the combined pressures of his old fears and the new expectations break him apart? Jake's fingers drummed against the tabletop, signaling a shift in his focus. With Claire by his side, every step would demand courage, not just to learn but also to confront the depths of his own potential. The real question echoed persistently: could he evolve from the artist who merely marked pages to the visionary capable of blending art with technology, capable of redefining his existence? The promise of transformation lingered before him, potent and exciting, as Claire's next words hung in the air, a challenge waiting to be met. Jake, what do you think our work will mean for both of us by the end of this? Jake awoke the next morning with a jolt, his mind still swirling with the intricacies of their project. The sun filtered through the blinds, illuminating the scattered remnants of his sketches, hastily scrawled notes, and the remnants of yesterday's deliberation. No longer was this a mere artistic endeavor, this was his crucible, a path toward overcoming the remnants of his self-doubt. As he prepared for the day, thoughts rushed in like an open floodgate. He could initiate their technological explorations. Diving into tutorials online became essential. He envisioned himself not just an artist but as a nascent coder, someone who could articulate his vision through technology. Yet, another voice whispered from the recesses of his mind, you could fail. Determined to silence that uncertainty, Jake sat at his small, cluttered desk, searching for resources. He stumbled onto a series of YouTube tutorials on augmented reality. The tutorials presented both a world of opportunity and a staggering challenge. He committed to carving out dedicated time to learn, promising himself to engage with content that echoed the awe he found in Claire's exuberance. Later that day, as he met Claire to brainstorm again, he understood the challenge of communication lay not just in discussing ideas but in sharing vulnerabilities. I started looking into those tutorials you suggested, Jake admitted, his heart thudding in his chest. Some are pretty advanced, but I think I can grasp the basics if I give it time. Claire leaned forward, a twinkle of admiration in her eyes. That's exactly the attitude we need. Diving in is the best approach. Remember, every expert was once a beginner. It's about progress, not perfection. Her encouragement infused him with the kind of determination that chased shadows in his mind. But as they discussed design ideas and mapped out segments of their project, a gnawing thought re-emerged. Claire, what if I can't keep up? He asked, the tremor in his voice betraying his bravado. This whole tech side, it feels like I'm stepping into quicksand. Claire's expression shifted to one of understanding. Then we adjust. Learning is iterative. If something doesn't click, we can tackle it from another angle. But we can't let fear dictate our pace. Jake nodded slowly, absorbing her words. Anxiety gave way to clarity. Their collaborative effort wasn't merely about managing tasks, it was about growth both as a team and as individuals. That evening, his mind whirling with newfound confidence, Jake began tackling the first lesson from the tutorial series. It wasn't smooth sailing at first, lines of code seemed like riddles he was unequipped to solve. Each failure juxtaposed with fleeting moments of clarity only led him to question whether he could bridge the gap between technology and art. Yet, with every fleeting frustration, a flicker of resolve burned brighter inside him. It wasn't about navigating every avenue flawlessly, it was about identifying his approach. He recalled Claire's words, progress, not perfection. Weeks passed. With each tutorial tackled and new skill acquired, he felt a gradual bond forming with this unfamiliar territory. Jake had gone from fearful resistance to deliberate engagement, where uncertainty transformed into curiosity. Each challenge became an opportunity, revealing aspects of his character he had long buried under layers of self-criticism. The day of reflection arrived. Jake and Claire gathered their ideas, ready to present the prototype to a group of mentors they had reached out to. They had invested countless hours, their shared dedication tangible in the way each element of the augmented reality melded with the physical art. As they prepared, Jake's heart raced not with fear, but with anticipation. Would they see the vision he had been building? The potential for what lay beyond this prototype trembled in the air like electricity. In the final moments before presenting their work, Jake looked at Claire. No matter what happens today, I want you to know I'm really proud of what we've created. Claire beamed back, reflecting his determination. And whatever they think, this is just the beginning for us, right? Yet just as he acknowledged their progress, a familiar shadow of doubt lingered at the periphery, reflecting back on the journey ahead. If they faced criticism today, what would happen next? Would he be able to maintain his resolve when receiving feedback? The moment was soon upon them, and Jake took a deep breath as they stepped into the room. Anticipation ignited within him, but lingering fears had not fully faded. Jake held tightly to the belief that this presentation could redefine him, both as an artist and as an individual. But as the first questions fired at them, drawing out his unspoken insecurities, he understood the real test lay ahead. Would he confront those fears and rise, or would he allow them to pull him back into doubt's shadow? As Jake stood before the group of mentors, each question posed felt like a weight pressing down on his chest. But amidst the anxiety roiling within, a flicker of growth sparked in his core. This was not merely a presentation, it was an embodiment of his journey. "Tell us, Jake," one mentor queried, their gaze penetrating. "What was your vision for this project?" He took a deep breath, feeling the supportive presence of Claire beside him. "Our aim was to explore the intersection of street art and technology," Jake articulated, each word fueled by conviction. "We wanted to create an interactive experience that reflects community identity and the vibrancy of urban culture." The response hung in the air, the audience nodding, and for a heartbeat, Jake felt a rush of confidence. His commitment to this moment blossomed, unfurling like the colors on a canvas. With Claire leading the next segment, detailing their augmented reality components, he found his momentum. Listening to her speak, he witnessed the power of collaboration. Together they navigated through doubts, fears, and frustrations, stitching their talents into something greater. The chemistry they shared offered a palpable warmth that transcended the weight of scrutiny. As they unveiled their prototype, showcasing how viewers could interact with the art, Jake's heart raced not with fear of failure but with anticipation of recognition. He had conquered the anxiety that once paralyzed him. This was proof of his growth, each aspect reflecting vulnerabilities transformed into strengths. The feedback came, constructive and insightful, and though not every evaluation was a glowing endorsement, Jake absorbed it with newfound resilience. Gone were the days of crumbling under pressure. Instead, he actively engaged, responding with enthusiasm and demonstrating his commitment to evolve. "That's a great point," he acknowledged to a mentor who offered criticism on their technological integration. "We realize from your feedback that enhancing user experience is crucial. We'll definitely explore this further." As they wrapped up the presentation, a wave of relief washed over him. Jake felt a surge of fulfillment he had never experienced before, a fusion of pride in his work and recognition of his journey. This was a pivotal moment, one that marked their efforts as legitimate and necessary in the creative landscape. In the days following their presentation, the camaraderie between Jake and Claire deepened. They collaborated to refine their project further, welcoming challenges as opportunities. For the first time, Jake felt motivated, even eager, to confront possible failures, knowing they would only guide him closer to his artistic identity. Even at home, he no longer concealed himself in self-doubt. He shared his sketches with Claire more freely, inviting her into his artistic process. "What do you think?" he would ask, eyes bright with anticipation for her feedback. She encouraged him with each stroke, fostering an ideal environment for exploration. "Remember," Claire would say, "it's about progress, not perfection." Weeks passed, and they both entered a local art showcase, Jake submitting his latest works infused with that newfound confidence. The night spent sketching and creating alongside Claire transformed into something palpable, an explosion of vibrancy pouring off the canvas that embodied his artistic spirit. When it was time for the showcase, Jake held his head high, filled with gratitude and purpose. The responses to his work were overwhelmingly positive. Viewers resonated with his vision, appreciating the layers of narrative woven through his art. As the awards were announced, Jake felt a tremor of excitement surge through him. He and Claire were recognized for their collaborative effort, receiving commendations for pushing the boundaries of traditional art. But amidst the accolades, what filled Jake with true joy was the clarity of personal achievement. He had conquered not only the technicalities of his art but also the deepest insecurities that had once held him captive. Having embraced his identity as an artist, he had severed the chains of doubt. Claire stood beside him as they shared the moment, and he realized that though he would always be a work in progress, he was on the right path, truly living his artistic truth. With a solid confidence, Jake stepped off that stage knowing he'd transformed not just in skill, but within the fabric of who he was. This was the moment he had claimed back the artist in himself, a true fulfillment of potential. As he entered the next chapter of his life, he would always remember that it wasn't merely the destination that mattered but the journey that had profoundly reshaped him, and the ability to continue growing, creating, and embracing the fullness of his identity. Now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our mission of sharing transformational journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's incredible transformation. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and ignite their own paths of growth. You need to subscribe now, because this is the moment to show your support and connect with fellow fans who understand the power of personal overcoming stories. Don't wait even one more second to share.